Welcome in Wednesday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby and Rexrode sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. We're broadcasting for the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And Paul Kaharski in again today for Robbie Stanley, a full week. You know, what's a tougher task? You coming in here every day this week and having me bicker at you, or Robbie going to Disney World this many days in a row?
How little is she?
My goodness. So Allison she hasn't hit her second birthday. Okay, so she's close to
like
2.
18 months.
Close to 2. Now,
that's a tough assignment.
Well, she was excited, I know, talking about like Minnie's house and stuff like that. So like there's some recognition, some excitement.
I automatically think of it, and I think of the child reaching exhaustion levels and how exhausting that is for the parent. Right. I think that's a far tougher assignment.
Yeah. And I've experienced that, like, because I've only done like the one day thing, I think all of our kids, maybe not the oldest, but definitely the younger two, have done the Disney thing very young, like in the stroller type thing. And it's just like, you gotta get out of here.
Our big trip, which was to California, Disneyland, was at peak age, like a peak age, like 7 maybe, when I was a Disney employee.
Right.
So we got in an hour early most of the time, and we're staying at Disney property, and we did about 3 days, and it was tremendous.
7's good.
Yeah.
This is hey man, they are, but I know they're also doing, by the way, they're doing like the Universal thing too, which is key, not just of the Disney properties. So you can stretch it out down there in Orlando. We have Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic talking draft later. Obviously, we're going to talk primarily NFL. I did want to start, though, on some college hoops. I mean, I haven't been taking advantage of the fact that Robbie's not here enough, I mean, I'm deferring to you by not talking more college basketball. But, I got to sneak some in.
I thought you wanted to hold the audience.
Oh, yeah. There's you know what? Every time on the text line, especially like if Vanderbilt wins a game, people are, their text line is full of people like, why do you never talk about college basketball? You never talk about you never talk about the ball. Now, both of those fan bases.
I watched the last 5 minutes of the Vols game. There's good reason not to talk about that game.
Yeah, that was a bad loss. They both lost. Vanderbilt showed some fight, but Auburn is the best team in college basketball. Showed again why last night. Tennessee is a much better team than Kentucky this year, and Tennessee, still in the mix to be a number 1 seed. Kentucky is really not a good defensive team, but for whatever reason, it's just a bad matchup. Kentucky can actually guard Tennessee, so they swept them. And I don't know off the top of my head, but it's Rick Barnes does not get swept by Kentucky. It doesn't happen, and it's really weird that this is the Kentucky team that sweeps him. Now, granted, he had a little bit of an edge on Calipari. I mean, he just, especially in Lexington, he had several wins in Lexington. So very disappointing result for Tennessee last night. Tie game, missed all their shots late. Kentucky's best player, not best player, best shooter, but probably the best shooter in college basketball. They let him get shots, and he hit 2 of them. And so that's the game. So Tennessee, nowhere near the SEC championship race at 7-5, still right there. And they're at 20-5 to be a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, but disappointing result. Vanderbilt 80-68 loss. And Vanderbilt still at 17-7, 5-6. They're still on course. I think they're going to get in, which is a huge development, completely unexpected if they can do it. The problem with the SEC. And this is, by the way, PK, again, talking about a sport that I don't think you follow very closely, but the SEC is the best conference I've ever seen in college basketball. This year's SEC. I've never seen anything like this. They have a chance to get 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. And it's just, it really is amazing night after night, the quality of the basketball. So
it's too many teams, no matter how good your conference is. I think.
Well, I mean, that football is screwed. Yeah, football screwed everything up so that all these conferences are too big. So from that perspective, yeah, I mean, it's weird and it's not ideal and everything is about football. But like it's quality with that quantity. Again, they have 16 teams, 14 of them are legitimate NCAA hopefuls, and the other two, I mean, they're not great, but like they have some talent. They're decent teams. But they have 4 teams that could be number 1 seeds, which has never happened before the NCAA tournament. I don't think it's going to happen. Like Tennessee losing to Kentucky last night is one of the reasons that it probably isn't going to happen. There's going to be some upsets. But 4 teams, all 4 teams as a number 1 seed, never happened before, and
that'd be pretty crazy.
Yeah,
You've had 3, right? Big East back in the day had 3.
The Big East had 3 in 2009.
The glory days of basketball.
That was the glory days, 2009?
Oh, absolutely. Well, no, but earlier than that, 80s. Wasn't like Georgetown, St. John's.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The old Big East. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So in 89, that's what's funny too, is it's like it was 3 number 1 seeds. So that was UConn. That was, I think, Pittsburgh, although Villanova made the Final Four. Do you know the other team that was the number 1 seed from the Big East?
This is in 89?
09.
09. Georgetown. Sorry, say again?
Not George. It was UConn.
UConn, Pitt. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to guess.
Louisville, which is now an ACC team.
That's
that's so to me, I'm with you. The old Big East, when it was Syracuse and it was John Thompson and Jim Boeheim, and I mean those were, Rick Pitino at Providence, and then of course Jim Calhoun at UConn. Those were definitely glory days. 2019 ACC also had it too. So let me ask you this: other than the NFL, what sport, like if you basically crap on all the other sports other than soccer, other than European soccer, which you love, where does college basketball come in for you on the pecking order of sports that you hate?
I like March Madness. Look, it don't make it like it's me. I mean, I'm not unlike America. You think most of America is following college basketball right now? You're mistaken. And we were talking about this the other day. How are your hits doing at the Athletic for college basketball compared to other thing you write?
They don't do as well as college football.
Yeah,
I understand that.
That's reflective of what America's into. That's not like some glitch.
Yeah. I mean, you're still talking about millions of people watch college basketball games. So,
yeah.
Right.
As opposed of hundreds of millions.
Yeah. I understand. Like we already have established that the NFL is the most popular. That's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking you to tell me what's the most popular. I'm asking you, where you're like, you don't have to tell me, no one watches this stuff. Just tell me what you think.
Yeah. For me, I mean, I watch the NFL in a different way professionally. My second thing and my personal favorite is baseball, but not the league. I think, and people really downgrade baseball. I think baseball city. I love baseball. I love Yankees baseball. I watch Yankees baseball, 3 out of 4 nights. The games are on a little bit early here, so 6:00 start. I might not be done with my stuff until 7:30, so I'm only catching last 3 innings, but it's on pretty much nightly in my house. Now, if it turns into a total crap game, I might move on or whatever, or a certain night I might not be in the mood for it. But Yankees are a regular thing for me. So that's very constant. And I think baseball gets a bad rap in terms of viewership in that, no, people don't follow the league. But if you go to Milwaukee, what's the number 1 rated show in Milwaukee on a nightly basis? The Brewers. What's the number 1 rated show in Kansas City on a nightly basis? The Royals.
Yeah.
More people are watching the Royals game in Kansas City on a given night than anything else.
Right. But
which is still a huge thing. It's
right.
different than the NFL for sure.
But see, you can play the exact same game with college basketball. Go to Kansas and tell me the ratings of Kansas basketball, right?
Well, Kansas, but not in every market.
No, but I mean in the Big Ten, and now it's interesting in the SEC. You got buildings that are 15, 20,000 people that are full, that are the best environment. I mean, you to me, the environment of a college basketball game is still the most home benefiting sports atmosphere that we have.
Yeah, but I would argue that college basketball has done far more to hurt itself with you just don't know who's on the team. It's a different team every year. There's no sustainability. In baseball, as much as it's done to hurt itself, most guys are there for 3 or 4 years. Most guys have a guy who's the linchpin of the team for 8 years. So you know who you're going to see. College basketball became impossible to keep up with who's on it. I'm not invested in it at all. It goes back to our fan rooting thing. Like, you can't pick a favorite player and stick with him because he's never there for 3 years.
Yeah. But, well, the funny thing about that is that actually, depending on the program, that really goes back to one and done, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to,
I think it ruined itself with one and done.
Kids not being able to just go to the NBA because the NBA was sick of kids coming in and be like, oh, wait, this guy can't play at all. And we just spent the number 8 pick on him. So the NBA puts that rule in, which, some programs benefited. But I would actually argue if you look around, there's actually more people staying because they can get paid now. So, there is that element of it. I mean,
it's going to take some time for that to,
take
hold.
Like Hunter Dickinson, but you're seeing some of it. You're seeing some of these guys. I mean, Janai Broom, he's going to be college player of the year. His 3rd year at Auburn. In the past, he's in the NBA. He goes in. But he can make good money. He's not a lock first-round pick, so it's like you're not getting him the guarantee kind of, okay, I'll come back. I'll play college basketball through my eligibility, get paid well. And so now Auburn fans have a 3rd straight year of cheering for him. So there is, in some way, because of all this stuff, it's actually changing for the better in that way. But I hear what you're saying. Look, college sports, you still, you're 4 years max anyway. And that's if someone's good as a freshman, right?
Yeah. I still, like most people, get into March Madness. Maybe it's a little less than it used to be, but it's good TV. There's a lot of edge of your seat games and a lot of teams coming out of nowhere. It's the number one thing for stories from nowhere. And I'll take stories from nowhere. St. Peter's, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I'm like most people, I like that. And it's also good for throwing, $5 on this and that. It's probably the best betting thing.
Beyond just the bracket?
Yeah. I mean, you do a bracket, but you also sit down at the beginning of that Thursday and say, all right, I'm going to parlay these 3, see if I can't hit some crazy home run.
Right. Okay. So,
and generally in terms of sports, I like space, right? I feel like hockey, there's only so many things that can happen in the tight space. I love Olympic hockey because there's more space. At basketball, there's not enough space. So I prefer football, baseball, soccer, outdoor things where there's a lot more space for creativity and people to run into space.
Interesting. Okay. So you would be a big Quidditch fan then?
I'm not into
flying around
Harry
the sky.
That's
like a lot of space up there. Yeah. I mean, so you're a Quidditch guy. Okay. That's very interesting. More space is the better. That we've gotten to something. Texter says PK is getting so defensive because you asked him what his second favorite sport is. Calm down, Chief.
I'm not defensive.
It is funny. I mean, you're exactly right about baseball, but that's kind of, again, that's, it just depends on what market you're talking about, when it comes to college hoops or other sports like that too. I mean, there are some areas where there's nothing more important, right?
Well, I just think people are so hell-bent on the NFL as the TV monster.
Right.
Well, obviously the NFL is a TV monster, but I think MLB, and I know MLB is having problems in certain markets. It should work in every market. It should work. I mean, unless you're perennially bad, I don't know who that is now, Miami Marlins or whatever. But unless you're perennially bad, I think people watch baseball the same way you're talking about college basketball. I mean, I think sports on TV should still work. It's just different. It's not national. It's local.
Yeah. And again, if you're going to compare anything to the NFL, then it's going to look like it's failing. But,
it's a different model.
Yeah. And, another sport that's absolutely accelerating is women, WNBA and women's college basketball, which is great to see. All right, we've got I got something going on with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers that made me wonder if something like that might happen here. We'll get into that next. Robby and Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Hit us up at the game phone text line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, 615-737-1025. Also, I will try to mine the YouTube chat today. I gotta make sure.
Will you?
I gotta make sure. I gotta make sure. Did you tweet out the YouTube chat, Keezer? That's what I need. There it is. There it is. Then I can click on it, and then we can get into that discussion too. So
You're working that cough button
yeah, right.
like a magician.
Thank you. So you've got Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. We know that they met, I guess, last week, right? They met last week. Aaron Rodgers, I guess I took it like Aaron Rodgers was informed. Thanks, but no thanks. We appreciate it. Oh, there you go. I go to the YouTube chat and I don't have it muted. So now I can play
Good job by you.
Delayed me
I didn't
on
either.
the show.
I didn't
either. So then my colleague Diana Rossini comes out with something. I find this just fantastic.
I love this also.
I
think we're both going to love this story.
Yeah. This came out yesterday. I want to make sure I read this word for word. So basically, it sounds like they gave him a condition, although I still wonder, like, if he would have said, okay, then all's well, or is that just like a condition they know he's going to say no to? But regardless, again, this is Diana Rossini at The Athletic reporting that the team did present, quote, the team did present Rodgers with a potential plan to move forward with him as their quarterback.
Well, there's your answer. Potential plan to move forward. So say yes to this stuff and we'll continue to talk about moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, right. But it's just, I'd love to see the alternative timeline of him saying, okay. And then them saying, oh, crap. Well, I thought you were going to say no. Yeah. But anyway, continuing to quote, it included stipulations about outside media work during the season and a requirement that he attend all mandatory offseason workouts, according to team and league sources. And again, later, specifically these conditions, quote, Rodgers would no longer be permitted to make outside media appearances during the season, including his regular paid appearances on the Pat McAfee show. And then the mandatory practices, for people who don't remember, he had the trip to Egypt, so he missed a couple of mini camp practices last year for his pre-scheduled trip to Egypt. But that McAfee and media stuff is fascinating to me. I would just love to know, that I'd love to be able to be a fly in the room when that message is delivered to him, and then to see his reaction and how he responded to it.
You can imagine
tremendous.
The look on his face and the eye roll. I mean, that's what I'm imagining. Now, usually I'd be horrified by this idea of them restricting his media. This is how big a distraction he was to the team with this outside media stuff, and how much it was 52 plus 1 as opposed to 53. The idea that he's put off by the necessity to be at mandatory practices. I mean, think of what a separatist he is. This was Roger Clemens not having to travel with the team that I was incredibly put off by with the Yankees. I don't want anything to do with a guy that is so separate of the team, and it's incredibly unhealthy. And this is Aaron Glenn saying as much, to have a guy who's got a different set of rules from the rest of the team. A guy at the most important position who needs to, all of these quarterbacks could conceivably push the envelope with stuff like this. And they intentionally don't. They intentionally are the earliest at the facility and the latest at the facility and fulfill their media obligations and are at, a lot of them, not just the mandatory stuff, but some of them at the non-mandatory stuff, especially during culture building times when the new coach is there. Derrick Henry wasn't at non-mandatory stuff for the Titans, but guess what happened when the new coordinator took over, when Tim Kelly took over? He showed up and we said, hey, why are you here? You're usually not here. And he said, it's a new offense. I got to be here to learn a new offense. That's a totally different message than, hey, look at this picture on Instagram of me at the pyramids while you guys are working.
Yeah. Now, I don't know some of the things you said there. I don't know that that's anti-Rodgers. Is Rodgers not? I mean, has he never been an early show up, late leave guy?
No, but I'm saying maybe you're doing that stuff on the days that you're there, but isn't it offset by the fact that you're in Egypt for 2 days of mandatory stuff? Yeah. Mandatory means mandatory. The guy who's not there for mandatory is a pariah. The other guys who aren't there You say, oh, it's okay, our quarterback's not here, but this third string left tackle who's dumb enough to stay away because he thinks he's getting something out of working with his trainer. We're all down on him. Everybody's bad-mouthing him. Oh, but at the same time, we're saying Aaron's our great leader. I mean, it just sets up all kinds of double standards. It's not healthy for any kind of locker room.
Yeah.
And it's fine if you're doing McAfee, unless you're talking about the offensive coordinator's calling terrible plays, or I mean, he's saying divisive stuff on there.
Well, yeah, the whole league awaited his, that interview, right? I mean, it was like, so I mean, basically, like the state of the Jets, a big portion of it would be delivered on that show by him and his mindset. No, I mean, I totally get it. My question moving forward is, so if let's say you're the Tennessee Titans and you are considering him, I mean, I think you have to be. He has to be on a relatively short list of possibilities for you at quarterback next year. Tennessee Titans come with a similar, mandate. Is Aaron Rodgers just completely out? I mean, do other teams have the guts to do that?
I mean, I think the precedent's been set now. If he comes here and you let him go to wherever his next trip is, Beijing. If you let him go to the Great Wall of China,
like what he has months.
He's got a very, very packed schedule.
He has months in which he can go to anywhere.
So if
he schedules it during minicamp.
I don't think he's coming here. I'm putting that on the record. But if you let him go to the Great Wall of China during mandatory practices and you let him go on McAfee, don't you look like a spineless, weak team? Don't you look like you don't have the same priorities that the New York Jets do? If he came here and did that, that'd be one of the first things I wrote. They don't have the standards the Jets have. The lowly Jets.
Yeah. And now,
the terrible Jets.
Now it is
one of the
coach.
Worst franchises. One of the franchises you could say is worse than you, who's got a grandson who's making personnel decisions based on Madden, and you've got lower standards for your quarterback than that team.
Yeah, we got some thoughts on that. Similar to that, we will get to when we come back. Robby and Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in. Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Also, we'll be giving away a family 4-pack of tickets to Athletes Unlimited later. So be ready for that, probably in the 8 o'clock hour. So we're talking Aaron Rodgers and the stipulations the Jets put on him. Ed, you and Ed may not agree on fandom. But
I think Ed came to a good spot with me after I clarified.
We're all okay? Okay. But he says if Rodgers was put up by those stipulations, don't know how the Titans bring him in, without looking weak. And so, but again, it's like bring him in, and then, I think you're right. It's like this is now, and that is Aaron Glenn, by the way. I mean, that's what I would trace it to, right? They have a new head coach, a guy who comes from a good culture, and a guy who was a great player there, and good for him. I mean, I don't know if you saw like the first Aaron Glenn presser, but he got asked like 12 different times, is Aaron Rodgers going to be your quarterback? And he was just like, I don't know, guys, but I think that's a fair point. Like, how do you not have the same conditions? And if you don't, what does that say about you? And how is he going to react to that? I mean, how important is the McAfee appearance to him? He seems to really enjoy it. It gives him obviously a big microphone to just,
and it's lucrative. I mean,
sure.
He's making $1 million a year, I think, or something like that.
He's getting the annual payout on that is $1 million. Yeah,
I think so. I mean, that which isn't big money to
for him.
In context,
that's a little bit of a drop in the bucket, but
still,
sure, it's easy money.
I mean, he clearly likes being out there and the attention that brings him. And then it allows him to say nothing of consequence at his weekly press session with his local media.
Yeah. Jared on the YouTube chat says, can't wait for him to refute the reports on McAfee this week. Well done. Well done.
Very good.
Yeah. So this is, you wonder, is this a, how much of a deterrent is it? Let's just, we mostly talk about Aaron Rodgers and obviously what matters the most. How is he as a player? I mean, I don't think anybody has the illusion that Aaron Rodgers is going to come and be like the guy you were talking about earlier, the culture setter, right? That's just not what it is. He's a very talented guy who ideally can help you win football games because he's really good at playing quarterback. But how much, the distraction element, how much does that hurt him? How much does that possibly limit him, maybe limit him to something like this place as a starting option?
I don't like him really as I don't know. Let's look at it this way. If you erase all of the nonsense, this stuff that the Jets wanted to limit, and I'm probably going to ask for specific personnel people, and just put them out there as, a very old quarterback with limitations who can still, obviously make some throws and do a very old version of Aaron Rodgers, the football player. Then I think he's got, he would rise on this board of potential older, bridgy quarterbacks. I don't know how highly I'd rank him. I certainly would move up without all of that stuff. Certainly would move up.
Sure.
But I don't think you can remove that stuff. I mean, he's clearly scoffed at these two demands.
Right.
Which is just tells you everything you need to know to me.
So you have not winning, you have an Achilles, you have pretty good numbers. You don't have many winning plays though, or drives this year, right? Obviously. I mean, when I watch them, I feel like every time I watch the Jets, he was coming up just short on like a late drive. Though those drives that he used to,
big third down.
Yeah, those drives that he used to always complete when he was great.
And that team was reasonably talented. I mean, people were picking the Jets as a playoff team last year.
I did
before he got hurt
right
very quickly in the first game, and this year with him back, It was not a terrible roster by any means.
So
he didn't deliver what was expected of him. His numbers weren't bad, but like you're saying, situationally, he wasn't very good.
Well, and then how much of the underachieving relative to the talent level do you put on him? I think that's. I mean, obviously, Saleh gets blamed. The whole organization's a bleep show, independent of Rodgers. We know this. Right?
Coach fired, GM fired.
Yeah, but in all the ownership crap, I mean, that's not Rodgers. But I mean, how much of what he does or doesn't do just makes a team worse? I don't know. I mean, obviously, the Packers had great teams not that long ago. Now they he couldn't beat Brady in the NFC title game, but they had some great teams not that long ago, and he was kind of in this stuff, doing stuff like this, right? But also he'd grown up with that team too. So I think you got long-term relationships in a locker room with a guy, right? So again, it's like he's trying to bring his guys with him to the Jets, and wherever he goes, I'm sure he's going to hope that Devontae and Lazard will come with him there. But then you go to a new place and everybody's like, what the hell's up with this dude, right? And again, to me, that all adds up to buyer beware on this guy.
And he's 41. Like, we're talking about some other guys that are 36, 37. I think, 36, 37, there are guys who play at 36, 37. You get to 41, that's exponential. I think those years start to have exponential effect on your physical downfall.
Yeah, there aren't many examples of guys playing at a high level there. Obviously, Brady's, the exception. Brady did some extreme stuff and continues to with the Botox. Let's say
wow, his face. A lot of commentary on his face.
It freaks me out, especially when people put on like Twitter. They put like the comparison pics of like when he was 20 years younger.
Is it necessary? He was a very handsome man. Just age handsome.
Just accept your age. Exactly. Brian Y on the text line says, which is worse, looking weak or not winning? As a Bears fan, I hate Rodgers, but I also know he's inherently better than anything they had on the roster last year, even at his age. Would you like to trade him for Caleb Williams?
Yeah. Oh, they won 5 games. So looking weak and not winning. Right. It wasn't like one or the other, looking weak or winning. Now, the Jets have to go find an alternative. But at a certain point, you say, well, it's time for us to go do what's next.
So Richard Snyder on the YouTube chat says, second-year head coach, the second-year OC probably can't handle Rodgers in any meaningful way. I mean, I am imagining.
Yeah, he's the boss.
I'm imagining like Nick Holtz saying, hey, Aaron, sit down and let me show you this, man. Look at what you screwed up here, And yeah, obviously Callahan. I think that, that actually brings me to a thought on the coaching staff, PK, that I would like to get your thoughts on. And when we come back, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Talking a little Aaron Rodgers, but I thought Richard Snyder's point here, PK, was a good one. And I was thinking about this recently, and maybe I'm not trying to like blame all of national media or even blame you. Maybe you made a bigger deal out of it than I realize. But I do feel like here on this program, I can just speak for this program. I don't know that enough was made of, the Titans hire Brian Callahan and the first year head coach, the first year OC, the first year DC, the first year special teams coach come in together and try to win football games.
Oh, absolutely. Enough wasn't made in hindsight.
And I look back and I'm like, I mean, we certainly talked.
And a second year GM.
Yeah, we certainly talked about it, but
and a first year president of operations.
Right. Like that should have been more of a red flag, right? Like
Absolutely.
Should have been more of a red flag. Like someone in one of these spots needs to be a seasoned veteran who has some skins on the wall, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I think their thinking was that most first year head coaches have a experienced guy like even
on whatever the side of the ball,
Fisher,
they're not that it isn't their side of the ball, right?
Even Fisher, as he got more experienced, always had a Gunther Cunningham, a Dave McGinnis type of guy around.
I mean, Vrabel gets Dean Pease right out of retirement.
Yes.
Right? For example.
But I do think I don't think they ignored that entirely in that Bill Callahan, yes, he's a dad, but he's a guy with significant head coaching experience and is a generation older. So he was the
gray beard,
of the staff. But yeah, in hindsight, they had far too little experience. And there was a lot of conversation about all that they learned in that first month. And I wrote numerous times about this is too slow. They're Brian's talking about discovering things about Calvin Ridley 6 weeks into the season that he needs to know 2 weeks into the season, that he needs to know at the end of camp. You don't get an allowance period to learn your team at the start. Or if you do, then you better be looking back at the season saying, boy, he really learned Calvin Ridley, and this team from the first 6 weeks is unrecognizable in the last 6 weeks because it's gotten so much better. We didn't see that at all. The team at the end of the season was every bit as bad as the team at the beginning of the season. The newness was a disastrous.
Ridley got better. I mean, if you want to just isolate him.
But in terms of the team, there was no team growth.
So were you surprised that, and obviously they did address special teams, so they addressed special teams with a proven coach, but are you surprised that there wasn't a push? I guess, a push to maybe change a coordinator. And does the fact that there's no change, does that tell you anything?
That tells me that they are unified in the patience thing and the growth mindset. Now, if you want to be cynical, and we'll hear this at 2:00, that means they're just going to fire them all anyway. And so let Callahan have what he wants. And when they're 2-6, they'll fire the head coach and promote Denard or Bill. And they'll be all swept out at the end of the season. And Brinker and Borgonzi will bring in their man.
Okay, well, you ripped Stilly there, and I understand that the way you framed it that's the dramatic. But I will say, is there not somewhere in between where it's like, we're not sure about Brian, so do we want to pay for a proven coordinator when it is possible that this tenure is a 2-year tenure? I think there's a little bit less dramatic than the way you framed it. I don't think that's a crazy thought.
No, it's not a crazy thought. I do think almost all of the time when people say you can't get somebody here, it's false. Because money talks and everything. I think this is a period in time where it is difficult to get people here. I've talked about
because people are skeptical.
Veteran quarterbacks. Well, you come in to help set a culture. Last year, it's one thing to be part of a new thing. This year, you're coming in to a short-leashed coach who has a terrible track record already, and he's maybe a one-year coach. And what are you coming into?
Right.
And now, if you were in the market, which they weren't, for a new coordinator on one side of the ball or the other, what is he coming into? The most attractive thing there is that you might be an interim and a candidate to be the next head coach.
Yeah. I mean, you can get a 2-year deal,
Right. There's a lot more job security on these new staffs around the league, or for teams that are switching coordinators. Some of them being surprises, right? I mean, Cincinnati had a new defensive coordinator spot open because they had such a bad defensive season. Houston had an offensive coordinator spot open. That was a big surprise to most people. A year after that, those are good jobs.
Those are two guys, by the way, who, if you're the Titans, maybe would have been worth looking at.
Maybe it's right. But why would he come here?
Yeah. Yeah, no, exactly that. And that's part of the bind they're in. It's a coach. It's not just a player thing. It's a coach and a player thing.
And the reasons that you liked Denard Wilson last year, much the same way the reasons that you like Brian Callahan last year, if you're taking a 30,000-foot view, still apply. I don't think Denard Wilson did a great job. The defensive backfield, which is his specialty, did play pretty well. He had no pass rushers.
They didn't have their
defense was hurt terribly. And, if you're saying all the reasons you're saying give Callahan a second year are reasons to say give Wilson a second year.
Well, that's the thing too. Yeah. I am not sitting here thinking it's hopeless for either of those guys, for Brian Callahan or Denard Wilson. I think I can see both of them doing well. It's just sometimes in this league, your opportunity goes sour, and then when's the next one, right? But I don't come away from last year. I know some Titans fans disagree with this. I don't come away from last year thinking that that those Callahan and Wilson don't have a clue or are bad coaches. I think mostly they had bad roster, but they're on the clock right now.
Yes, and they need player development, and Brinker and Borgonzi, I think, talked about young players getting on the field fast. I've been looking at more of these draft guys. I've got a James Foster piece going up here in 10 minutes that looks very
7:04,
very thoroughly. Well, during the next break.
Okay.
Going.
I wanted it.
It's actually up.
I
just haven't.
7 a.m.
It's actually up. I just haven't tweeted it out.
Oh. Okay.
That looks very thoroughly at right tackle, edge, and receiver. Day 1, day 2. Day 3. Well, you look at the guys after, this is typical in a draft. You look at the guys after the first batch, and there's something wrong with all of them, or a developmental thing that needs to happen. Well, they need to quick develop some of these guys that are going to be on the field early and get, here's a right tackle who was a great run blocker, who played in a system that didn't ask him to pass block a lot. He looked like a promising pass blocker, but he only played, 340 pass block snaps. Can Bill Callahan get him out there if you draft a guy like this? Everybody's got a story like this, is what I'm saying. Can the Titans get guys like this on the field and turn them into productive NFL players soon? That's the kind of thing that they are going to be challenged to do, and without excuses. In terms of Callahan and Wilson and all those guys, for me, maybe the biggest story about the Titans offseason outside of player acquisition, and I talked to Callahan about this some, and I will check in on it multiple times. He needs to break himself down in a big way and build himself back up in terms of what his failures were, why things didn't work, why it was slow, and build himself back up in a very thorough way, without any pride and with a ton of humility. Is he capable of that based on what we know about him? I think yes. Is he smart enough to do that? Yes. 5 teams wanted him last year. two of them wanted him back. Atlanta and Carolina were probably going to hire him if the Titans didn't. That doesn't all go away with one crap year.
Right. And the James Foster info, that's good. That's good preparation for our next guest. We're going to have Nick Baumgartner on next. Talk a little NFL draft. Robby Rexrode, 1025, 1063 The Game. Second hour here, Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon. Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. Broadcasting for the Bisbee Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, Game Nashville Studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Paul Kaharski in for Robby this week, and we're very happy to bring in our next guest. Nick Baumgardner, my coworker at The Athletic, covers football, all things NFL draft, college football, the NFL. Nick, how's it going, buddy?
What's up, guys? How are you?
Doing all right.
Great.
And of course, here in this city, Nick, we're talking a lot about that number one pick. So let's just
you are.
Yes. So let's just start there. You're in charge of the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah.
What right now? How are you viewing those two quarterbacks, the potential trade suitors? What do you think the Titans should be looking to do?
Well, number one, you got to be looking to trade the thing. So, that's for me, that would be the number one priority of if I could do that, that's what I'm going to do. That's always tricky though in these cases because, sometimes you don't want to overplay your hand and let teams know what you do or don't want to do. I mean, to me, the Titans can't take one of these quarterbacks, guys. I mean, that's just, I like Cam Ward. I like Shedeur Sanders. I don't love either one of them. I think they have a chance to be something. I wouldn't, bet the farm on either. And I think the Titans they're not in position right now to take either one of those guys on and give them what they need, I think, either now or long term, quite frankly. So I think they need to find a way to maximize that asset the best they can. If they can trade it, great. That way you set yourself up to maybe get a tackle and an edge. If not, and you stick at one, I'm still looking at, like Abdul Carter or something else. If you like another edge or if you like somebody else, Travis Hunter better, that's fine. But to me, I just don't think a quarterback at one makes the most sense for Tennessee right now.
I've written this week a little bit about the desperation level of other teams and the potential for somebody to trade up there. The Giants, have a GM trying to save his job. The Jets haven't had steady quarterbacking for 10 years. There's a consensus, it seems, about these two quarterbacks. But do you see, as is usually the case, somebody falling in love with Cam Ward and making an offer that is attractive enough for the Titans to deal out?
I'd say it's certainly possible because, for a few reasons. Number one, I think that it's certainly possible that somebody, not just Cam, it might be Shedeur too. I know there's a lot more. I think there's a lot more questions, obviously, about long term with Shedeur, but also all the other stuff around him. I think the Cam Ward story though is pretty easy to fall in love with as a guy who's just done nothing but improve. Has gotten better and better everywhere he's been. So that would not shock me. And I think that the really interesting thing here for Tennessee there is what, nobody really knows what Cleveland, what are they doing? Like, I don't know. Did they want are they going to take a quarterback here? They want somebody else. I think that that's something too that maybe teams look at and say, we don't know what they want to do. We want to jump them. If that's a thing that rises up, or if the Raiders say love one of these quarterbacks more than the other, would they be interested in getting over the Giants even? So I think that it's very possible because there's two guys up here that are first round quarterbacks that are good enough to start next season with some help and guide you along, a lot like what Bo Nix did. I think at least Shedeur can do that. Cam Ward, I think long term is the better prospect, but they both need help. And I think that's for Tennessee right now, the best hope would be maybe if somebody falls in love, yes, and then wants to jump up there, one of those absolutely desperate teams like Vegas or the Giants.
If you're not up to speed on these guys, just say so. There's no shame in not being up on any of these billion guys. I'm curious about the TCU receivers who seem to be such polar opposites. Jack Besh, super reliable, incredible hands. And then Savion Williams, an athletic freak, contested catch marvel, but not great production and incredible drops, who seems like a super boom or bust guy. Tell us about the contrast in these two guys and what people will be getting.
100%. I mean, Savion is one of those guys that I think is maybe one of the biggest flash players in the draft, in that there could be teams that have him with crazy high grades, because you said it. I mean, he's like 6'5", 220. He's built like Kelvin Johnson, you know what I mean? And he's going to test probably similarly, I mean, at this point, these guys kind of do that these days. So he's going to have a freaky, testing, but when you watch his tape, there's just a ton of inconsistencies there. He's still learning how to play receiver. and all those things. So it's a lot like, he's got the DK body, but is he going to be a little bit like what's the kid the Texans took a couple years ago up there, who was kind of raw when they got him? I can't think of his name now, or is he going to be too raw to do anything basically at the end of the day? And then Beck, I actually think is one of those stories that he reminded a lot of people of Puka when he came and did what he did at the Senior Bowl, because he had a terrific freshman season at LSU. And then got lost in the sauce there, got behind Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas, and had to transfer, and sort of got lost in everything, and then really only he had a great freshman season, a great senior season. So he bookended his kind of nothing in the middle, and then went to the Senior Bowl and sort of reminded folks who he is. So I think Jack Beck is probably the more complete player, although not the flashier athlete. To me, and Beck, I think it wouldn't shock me if he slips, or at least is close in the range. I think he's a top 50 player, or at least somewhere close to that. He's very, very consistent and when healthy and everything else. And I liked him a lot. A big guy who can play every position, I think.
So, Nick, the Tennessee Titans, as you know, are very bad up front. And Titans fans do not get excited about the idea of drafting an offensive lineman high. They've done a lot of that in recent years, and they don't have much to show for it. But I did just want to ask you about just the offensive tackle class. I think it's, as you wrote in your mock draft this week, the offensive tackle class in general, not as highly regarded as some years, but you do have 4 guys going by pick 13.
Right.
How could you just break those guys down for us? And some people talking here about, J.C. Latham, who was a right tackle in college. Is it ideal for him to maybe bump back over to the right side? He had an okay rookie year, ups and downs. But it seems like a lot of these guys are more right tackle projections, correct?
Well, I think maybe sort of, but I think the beauty of these guys is some of them could go either way. I do think that you got a guy like Will Campbell he's got some length questions. And I think a lot of people are going to want to see him maybe even inside, what he can do there. But I think he could hold up at right or left tackle. I think Will Campbell's a lot like a Rashawn Slater from a few years ago when people had the similar doubts about him. He's a terrific kid, great leader. He's been a starter for 3 years. He's 20 years old, whatever it is, like above he's one of these older soul type guys. Josh Simmons is another one too from Ohio State. I think he could play either side. I think he's athletic enough to do it. I think Simmons is athletic enough to go inside if you had to do it. Kelvin Banks and Armand Membo, the kid from Mizzou, are very similar in that, I don't know if any of them are what we would call like a prototype, stand him over there at left tackle and he's going to be there for 15 years. But all of those guys are guys that can start at tackle, right or left, I think, depending on what you need them to do. Or if, the situation arose where you had to move them inside, they could absolutely play inside. Like Kelvin Banks, some people think he's a better guard, than a tackle. And I think Membo is, similar. I think some people might think he's a better guard than a tackle. So, but it doesn't mean that they can't do either or, I think. So it's one of those things where I think the flexibility it gives you is interesting if you have a team that's willing to look at it from that standpoint. Like Latham is he's 20, what is he, 21, barely? I mean, let him sort of learn and figure it out. Maybe we don't know what his best position is yet. You know what I'm saying? I think these guys right here in this class would fit well with a player like that. Not at 1. I think you want to trade down if you can do it, but I think these guys in this class, because of the flexibility maybe that would give you long-term.
On the edge, Michael Williams from Georgia, Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. If the Titans traded down, these guys could be in play. They've sure got the look and the bodies, but how far away are they as in terms of refining their pass rush game and being, early impact guys?
Yeah, I think Stewart's closer than Williams is. Stewart he looked really good in Mobile. Looks really good down the stretch there. He's legit 6'6", 290, whatever that is, 285, 290, somewhere in there. And he can play, pretty much anywhere up front, and I think that, and Michael Williams is a similar, conversation, but Shamar Stewart, I think is, he's thicker, he's stronger. He's got better play strength right now. Everything with him is more consistent. Whereas Michael Williams, that guy, I mean, his traits are off the chart. He is a Trayvon Walker, Jr., but even more raw. So he's barely played. It's been, when he has been in, the flashes have been, elite. We say 6'5", 270 with his wingspan is pretty crazy. When the summer guys, some people had Michael Williams up like number 1 or 2 in the draft. So He obviously didn't, pan that out during the season. So he's a guy that it could be a huge, huge reward, or it could be like, well, what are we doing here? 2 years in. That's Michael Williams right now, I think, for a lot of people.
And Mike Green had his moment at the Senior Bowl. What are the concerns for a small school pass rusher coming out of Marshall?
Yeah, he's really only had the 1 year as a big impact edge, and he's a guy that was much lighter a couple years ago. I wonder if he's not 250. I think he's in the 240s, and I almost wonder if he's topped out in the 240s, or even though he is young. So the questions there would be is the speed and everything else that he has, the raw juice, is that going to work as well as it did at a small level against NFL tackles? I don't know if we've seen enough moveset from him quite yet to have him as high as some people might have him, but like the raw, everything else there is the stuff you could work with him. And I think that people see a little bit of the Micah Parsons ability to move him around. You could stand him up. He's still kind of a ball of clay a little bit. I think that he's got a lot of that body twitch all over that nobody knows really yet what he's going to be, I think, is the big appeal with him.
Talking to Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic. Last thing, Nick, it looks that like you agree with me. I've been saying this. I think Travis Hunter could be a great receiver. But I think Travis Hunter could be like one of the greats as a corner.
Yeah.
You agree with this, that he should be a cornerback in the NFL?
Yes, yes. I think Travis Hunter would be a legendary type. He reminds me of Charles Woodson, and he did more than Charles Woodson in college. I don't know what else to say. It took a long time for me to get there on that one, but he reminds me of Charles Woodson. And as a corner, I think that's what he would be able to bulk up. He'd be able to settle at that position, and I think we haven't even seen the best of him at corner. And I think Travis could also, guys, I think he could still add more at receiver than like Charles did throughout his career. I think he'd be more willing and able. I think today's game would be more open to that. So that's what he reminds me of is Woodson. And, I think that it would be crazy not to at least explore full-time corner for him. Yeah.
Yeah, I would sign up for that. Nick Baumgartner for The Athletic. Hey, thanks so much for coming on, Nick. Really appreciate it, man.
You bet, guys. Anytime.
All right. Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic. Great stuff there. We'll react to it. Robby and Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Nashville's best deal this week. 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. 312 Pizza Company serves the best pizza in town, as well as Chicago-style eats like Chicago dogs, Italian beef sandwiches, and more. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now to get half off a $30 gift card to 312 Pizza Company while supplies last. Welcome back into Robby and Rexrode. And PK, good stuff there from Nick Baumgartner. I will tell you, Nick Baumgartner co-wrote a book that largely is about Charles Woodson and the 1997 Michigan Wolverines. So when he says that Travis Hunter reminds him of Charles Woodson, I take that very seriously. The physicality is a difference, an obvious one that stands out. But, I mean, Charles Woodson is, to me, I don't know, you tell me, second best corner I've ever seen in the NFL. I mean, I'd say Deion Sanders is the best.
Terrific.
But you're talking about two guys who just take away half the field. Like, that's how good they were for years in this league. And we value quarterback and pass rush and pass protection. There's a lot of value in a corner of that quality. That does a lot for you.
It's funny because I feel like in this market, Hunter right now is viewed very much as a consolation prize because people really have their hearts set. I think the consensus is on Abdul Carter.
Yeah, and that's, by the way, that's who Nick had the Titans taking.
Yeah,
at 1.
And I think too, I mean, the Titans played pretty well in the secondary last year. I'm not saying that means you don't take a Hunter if he's there, but the thing is, the Titans' biggest problem right now and for some time has been pass rush with 4. Now, they had a good pass rush with 4, the last time they were good, which isn't that long ago. But when they're not good, they don't rush the passer well. And you could say, well, Hunter helps them hold things up. Building back to front is a very backwards method, and I'm not saying that if you draft Hunter at 1 or at 3 after a trade down, that's not healthy for you and you can't get a great edge in the second round or, stumble into one in the 4th round who's going to help you get really good up front. But it's backwards in terms of how you're spending your resources.
Yeah. Look, to me, that if it were to come down to that and you're out on the quarterbacks, either you sign a veteran, whatever, you're just out on them. You're not doing it. Which, again, there's just another voice right there. And I've known Nick a long time. I respect him a lot. And there's a chorus of voices, though. So like, yeah, these quarterbacks are, they could be good. I wouldn't do it. But they could be good. Like, it's just enough of that. And you're just like, I'm kind of like, I've already said, I just wouldn't do it with either of them.
But Cleveland and in New York, hopefully, for the Titans' sake, somebody's saying, yeah, we can turn this guy into.
And again,
this guy can lead us out of this hole.
Yeah. And again, like,
he could be the face of our franchise.
5 years from now, if we're sitting here talking about, my God, all these teams that didn't realize Cam Ward was going to be great. How could you not see it? Look at from Incarnate Word to that could happen. It could absolutely happen.
Absolutely.
But if the Titans are in that spot and it's basically one of those two guys, man, obviously the question is just, is Abdul Carter that guy? Is he's going to be a good player in the NFL. I have little doubt about that, but is he that? Because I will say that I'm more, and this is probably just from watching him a little more, but I just think he's more exceptional. I have more conviction on Hunter being great at that position relative to others at that position in the league than I do Carter. I'm with you. I think edge is more important, and front to back, I'm with you on everything you're saying, but I have a little more certainty in my belief that Hunter is, he's going to come in this league and he's going to be one of those guys that just, you don't throw that way. I really think he's that good.
Either way, if you have one of them and they are terrific, that would offset a little bit. If Cam Ward is very good, you could at least say, well, we got a stud player at our position with our doubts on Ward. You're not going to get over misjudging Ward. You're not going to get any passes on that. Now that you raise an interesting thing, though. What if you take Carter and he's a very good pass rusher, but Travis Hunter's a Hall of Famer, or vice versa?
Yeah. Yeah, see that's the thing. I don't care. I just don't care that like the Titans. I mean, look, I just went through this and I still dabble a little bit, with some little draft stuff for the Athletic. And I was thinking about this because it was like basically the Titans' biggest need, and I was like, well, quarterback. But I was like, there are two positions on this team, so that I wrote like that where like you feel okay, which is corner and running back.
Yeah.
That's it. But even that at corner, I mean, look, the Snead and the Woozy, I don't know how long that's going to last.
Long term.
The long term hope would be that Brownlee keeps coming, and then if you have Hunter, then there you go. You've got maybe
Brownlee,
two outside.
Hunter, McCreary.
Yeah,
I could
McCreary
see as a long term nickel.
But like, I don't care that they right now are more stocked at corner than other. Like, if he's that good, it means nothing to me. That means nothing. It's a long term play. I mean, are you going to have one of the great corners? Who's the greatest corner in Titans history? And what did he mean? You just talked to him on the phone. And how much did he contribute to winning?
A lot.
I mean, you just don't get guys like that often.
Quick aside on Samari Rolle. I stumbled into this researching Eric Allen for the Hall of Fame. And you could say what you will about the metric. Approximate value at Pro Football Reference is a number they put on a guy for his value in the season. You can look at the formula and everything.
Yeah.
The best approximate value season in Titans/Oilers history. Samari Rolle in the year 2000. One of the 39 best seasons in NFL history.
Well, and what was the number?
22. 22 is the number, the approximate value number. The number doesn't mean.
I thought you were. It was like a value, like a dollar value.
Yeah,
it's just the.
Yeah.
Well,
so I talked to him about it.
Is that the best Titans team you've ever covered? By the way, the 2000 team that should have won it all.
Yes.
Yeah, they were the best team in the NFL.
Yeah, and I asked them, and they talked to me about it. It was cool. I said, how does it outrank Derrick Henry's 2,000-yard season? How does it outrank Chris Johnson's 2,000-yard season? How does it outrank Steve McNair's MVP season? I said it was, a great all-time defense. There were a lot of points to be spread around. Out of the 4 seasons that show up on their all-time list, Randall Godfrey in 2000 is one of the other seasons that's on the list from that 2,000-yard season. Check it out at paulkowarski.com.
Was Bullock a rookie that year?
Bullock was a rookie in 2000.
Yeah, then you got Curse.
So he didn't really play.
Curse in his second year. Yeah.
Curse. Samari was surprised it wasn't Curse, but I told him the other 2 seasons were defensive. He guessed Curse first, and when he missed, he then guessed the other 2 immediately: Godfrey and Cortland Finnegan.
Interesting. All right, we come back. Well, we got some concerns about Hunter, but I do also want to get into the position we talked about with Nick Baumgartner that I know some Titans fans really don't want to see their team draft high, but you got to consider it. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. But I think Travis
Yeah.
Hunter could be like one of the greats
Yeah.
as a corner.
Yeah.
You agree with this, that he should be a cornerback in the NFL?
Yes, yes. I think Travis Hunter would be, a legendary type. He reminds me of Charles Woodson, and he did more than Charles Woodson in college. I don't know what else to say. Like, it took a long time for me to get there on that one, but like, he reminds me of Charles Woodson. And as a corner, I think that's what he would be able to bulk up. He'd be able to settle at that position, and I think we haven't even seen the best of him at corner. And I think Travis could also, guys, I think he could still add more at receiver than like Charles did throughout his career. I think he'd be more willing and able. I think today's game would be more open to that. So that's what he reminds me of is Woodson. And, I think that it would be crazy not to at least explore full-time corner for him. Yeah.
That was Nick Baumgartner from The Athletic talking about Travis Hunter. Great interview. And it's always great to have people confirm your opinions, like that. Like I need people to validate my opinion. So
I mean, that opinion's pretty popular. You're making it like that's a revolution.
I feel like it's a pretty good debate.
There's nobody out there pushing him as a receiver strongly. Nobody.
Are you sure about that?
I haven't come across anybody saying that Travis Hunter is an NFL receiver first.
I swear I just read somebody, Breer or somebody, who made that claim. But I suppose you're right. More people are on the corner bandwagon than
Far
receiver.
more.
Yeah, well, but still, I mean, there's also still like there's the concern I've heard from people, and I get it. Like, yeah, he's like, a lot of the appeal of Travis Hunter is because he played every snap. He's this Iron Man. He won the Heisman. It's incredible to see what someone in college football play at that level at both positions. But is that inflating his value, right? Like, is all that stuff is that serving to inflate what he is? Because ultimately he has to be great at one or the other in the league, I believe.
I think he's going to be a terrific corner who can play some snaps on offense and give an offense a jolt. But I think he may take some time. You mentioned I talked to Samari Roll this week, and he likes him a lot, though he rates Abdul Carter as the best player in the draft, not Travis Hunter. And he said he will get good at man-to-man coverage, but he's not good at man-to-man coverage yet. And the reason he's not good at man-to-man coverage yet is because he didn't have time to focus on it because he was spread so thin by playing on both sides of the ball. And so they played a lot of zone. He's terrific at zone, but to get good at man-to-man, he's going to need to work at man-to-man. So he wouldn't play him hardly at receiver except gimmicky, and we would let him focus on corner, working a lot on man-to-man.
Yeah. Mike from PA says, Hunter being very vocal about playing two ways is concerning. He's good, but will he be a headache if you don't let him play both?
Well, he doesn't get to choose.
Yeah, and I don't think that's a problem. You get into the league, get paid, and you're gonna do the job. And look, once Travis Hunter gets in the league, because he is gonna have to bulk up. You play press man coverage. You're gonna have to be more physical. And once he gets in the league and sees what he's dealing with and who he has to cover, I don't think he's going to be too hung up on, I need more offensive plays in this. I mean, I think it would be, he's a guy that, like you said, gadgety, weave him in, and maybe at some point he can be more of a two-way player than we've seen in this era. Maybe.
And these teams are going to talk to him starting at the end of the month in Indianapolis, and they're going to say, hey, here's what we envision for you. What do you think?
Yeah, and also you're going to get drafted, so even no matter what you think, like
right.
Whatever that team thinks of you is like probably what's going to happen.
But if he's an ass in these meetings and he says, I absolutely have to play wide receiver, it's going to hurt him.
Yeah, and I have a hard time buying that.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, he's out there right now. Of course he wants to play both. Hey, I don't blame him. I mean, the guy, it is amazing what he did. I understand it's college football and it's not the NFL, but it is a power conference. There's a lot of guys he went against on both sides of the ball who are also going to be in the NFL, and it's remarkable what he did. And the guy is, he's going to step on an NFL field, and he is instantly going to be one of the best athletes even in the NFL on the field. That's what he is. So
I mean, you're very, very high on him. Do you take him over Abdul Carter?
I don't know. because again, if you tell me that Abdul Carter is that guy, like the elite guy,
I'm not telling you anything. I'm asking.
Yeah, I know. Based on the information I have right now, and honestly, it's like
not that much information.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I've
You've
watched
read.
them both. Yeah, read about them, and I've watched them both play. I think Abdul Carter is really good. I don't know that he's going to be this 12 to 15 sack, just write it in stone for 10 years. I just don't know that he's that guy. And to me, he has to be that level of player.
So you're leaning Hunter.
I guess I'm leaning Hunter. I'm talking myself into today, but honestly, I've it's tough. That's a tough one. I mean, it's good to have this problem. Like, are both of these guys going to be all-time great players? I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, then you can't go wrong. But it may be just one of them. And if you make me like put money down, put your bet in right now on which one of those two is going to be when that player is done, we're all going to be like, oh yeah, that's a lock Hall of Famer. I'm leaning Hunter, and I totally understand the added value or the difference in value between having a blot the sun out pass rusher in this league. It's probably the number 2 thing you want after having the great quarterback. Caleb says, I think the early returns on Hunter are not going to be great. He's going to get beat a lot at corner. That would be more noticeable than not being great at wide receiver, but I agree an elite at corner is more important. Yeah, look, I probably feel more strongly about this than anything about this discussion is that I don't think he's some superstar receiver. I just really don't. I think he's a guy who can definitely go make plays for you and be a good receiver, but I don't think he's one of those huge difference-making receivers in this league. And I'd love to know, Paul, maybe it's no one, but how many teams in this league, as they've gone through him, have him receiver then corner? You think anyone?
I think 0.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a really tough question.
Now, I think Teron Davenport has said like he sees him as a receiver here. I don't want to put words in Teron's mouth, but in conversations that we've had, he thinks, he'd be I think he said the best receiver on this team, or a great receiver on this team, considering what it has. Maybe kind of saying like with the corner group they have right now, you could play him at receiver, at least at the beginning, and let
not at corner
and let things sift out. I don't know. He likes him as a receiver. I'm not saying he likes him.
So
doesn't like him as a corner.
So there's someone.
But you asked me about teams.
Yeah. But I'm even in the analyst world, there's some people who think receiver, I believe. Now I need to go. Now I'm gonna find.
Well,
some people.
we'll talk to TD later this week.
Yes.
So we'll see his.
Well, I think but even I think there are a few. But yeah, you're right. There's definitely more sentiment for corner. Texter asked, "Would you trade the number 1 overall pick for Myles Garrett?" My answer is a quick no.
Absolutely yes.
You absolutely would.
Myles Garrett?
I would not trade him for Myles Garrett. Just because
I think Myles Garrett's going to cost more. I mean, I understand the first pick in the draft has enormous value, and that might have been a little quick because I want more. But Myles Garrett, man,
he's a great player. I
mean, he may be the best defensive player in the league. He changes your team immediately.
He does, but your team needs so much more than that. Like trade the first pick. I would rather trade the first pick and get multiple picks and build more guys. And you're paying.
The thing about those multiple picks are you're counting on those multiple picks to be good. Myles Garrett is great.
Yeah,
it's not a question.
Okay, so you're a quick yes. I'm a quick no.
I'm a little more hesitant after I consider it, but Myles Garrett gives you sacks, constant production, and unquestioned leadership.
Yeah, it's just I just get worried about a guy who's been in the league since 2017. Where is the cliff? When is that coming? And is he in a window of greatness when you get yourself together still?
So I don't.
But that's got to be part of the discussion, right? I mean, how is that not part of the discussion?
a lot of that, like when your window hits. Myles Garrett is 29.
Yeah, man.
I mean,
He's about to get into those 30s.
is
Making a
30 a
big
death
number.
knell for a pass rusher?
How many great pass rushers in the 30s do you know of?
I mean,
think there are too many.
Khalil Mack, Bosa,
Yeah.
Bosa.
But the Bosas are also like constantly hurt now, and they're younger than Garrett. I mean, it can happen, but I just like you get him, you pay him. That's a great building block. I don't think his best football's in front of him. I think his best football has been happening right now. And that's where my hesitation comes in. It's an interesting, I mean, it's an interesting question. The thing with Myles Garrett is he's going to be a Cleveland Brown next year.
Yeah, I agree. He's not going anywhere.
All right, we still have not gotten the offensive lineman. We really will, and Bill Callahan before this show's over. But coming up next on Robby and Rexrode, we're going to rant.
Sometimes he wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And sometimes he's just, well, Joe.
Awkward moment. Let's do it.
This is the Rex Rant, now on Robby and Rexrode.
We appreciate the American Red Cross for tuning in today on
Yes.
the program.
Go
Did you
get
just
blood.
say you give them baby blood?
My
What kind of
blood
weirdo
saves
are you?
babies.
Oh, okay.
Saves
I
babies.
give them baby blood. What?
Yeah. What are you doing? I say babies. What do you do?
This is for Shikarsky today.
Shh. No one cares.
That's right.
No one cares.
And I'm apologizing for just, I guess, again, not just saying someone should be fired in year one, which, again, if you're Jared and you do that all the time, there's sunlight, there's a dog's ass, it hits it sometimes. Well, there you go. Welcome back into Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon. Big Bank Muscle, Small Bank Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. And welcome to a rant from Paul Kuharski today. Since you don't like my rants.
Yes. I'm
Have
here
at
to,
it.
I'm here to provide a service for the people. Is there a more delusion? I mean, first off, the Dallas Cowboys have to just be so grateful for the Dallas Mavericks being so stupid that the Luka trade has taken so much attention and so much venom of the greater Dallas metropolitan area. The Dallas Cowboys are the most delusional franchise in all of professional sports, I dare say. Okay. They had a terrible season. They just watched the Philadelphia Eagles win the Super Bowl. They just watched the Washington Commanders go to the NFC Championship game. And three key players on their team very recently have said alarmingly stupid stuff about their proximity to the Super Bowl. Jerry Jones said it's shocking to be at this Super Bowl without the Cowboys in it. The Cowboys have gone the longest period of time of any NFC team without being in the NFC Championship game. Let that set in. The longest period of time. The Arizona Cardinals have been there more recently. Like
The Detroit Lions.
The Detroit Lions. Name the crappy NFC team that you could think of. And they've been to the NFC Championship game more recently than the Cowboys. Micah Parsons says it's going to be amazing when we're holding that trophy next year. And Dak Prescott says we're better. We've had the better part each and every time we've played these teams. They lost by a collective 75-13 to Philadelphia in 2 games last year. Now, Dak's missing these games because he's hurt. But they have no sense of reality. Jerry Jones has pumped this into them, this false thing. And all they're good at is being the Cowboys. That's what they do. They're the Cowboys. They're not interested in winning. He said last year they were all in and they made no moves. Derrick Henry lived in Dallas. Talk about the proximity thing. I mean, he was right there to talk to, and they didn't talk to him. They hired Brian Schottenheimer to maintain continuity. You're maintaining continuity of a bad team. It's unbelievable. Yet they think they're right on the doorstep.
Well, you haven't even gotten into the Stephen Jones, the drought people say we're in with the air quotes. You think this is like a subjective opinion?
Yeah. 3 decades without a championship is just a perceived drought.
Air quotes drought. It's really remarkable.
I mean, there are some people who just say things that this is a big, broad national problem. They just say things and think that makes them true. And in the sports world, nobody does this more than the Dallas Cowboys, who imagine that they're good. If you put up the imagined standings, Dallas is in first place constantly. And if you play an imagined Super Bowl, they are not just in it, baby. They are accepting the trophy from Bradshaw, from Nance, from Brady, from whoever's passing that Lombardi out with all the fingerprints on it. Dallas has a huge display full of them in their facility / tourist trap, where we've read a story about how guys come out of meetings and run into tour guides guiding people through, because we all know that's how you win a championship. Every team in the league, super secretive A reporter can't walk down a certain hallway with nobody in it. But Dallas, they're running people for $35 for $40 right down your hallway.
I'll say this for them. Their owner does at least speak. Their owner does at least speak and take questions. Yeah, let's give them that, huh?
Well, I like owner speaking. There's a happy medium there.
Yeah, there is.
He speaks too much.
Somewhere in between would probably be good. Now it really is. It really is. It's sad now. I mean, I think a lot, the America's team and the people, they've always been a polarizing team, right? I mean, I know that I as a kid hated them, and I was also kind of a Washington fan. So, but like there are a lot of Cowboys fans all over the place. They're one of those teams that just attracted. I mean, for you, your fan gatekeeping, radar would just go absolutely haywire as the Cowboys fans who just randomly decided to glom onto the Cowboys. I got a brother-in-law who's in that category actually, but like it is like, to me, it's almost sad now. I almost feel bad for Cowboys fans because of all this crap.
Yeah, I kind of do too, but some of them buy it. Some Cowboys fans think the Cowboys are a lot better than they are. Still, Billy texts me, Rand Carthon's team is pretty high in the imaginative standings. Well, Rand Carthon was only here for 2 years. Now, the ball luck was terrible for Rand Carthon's team, but he hadn't been doing it for 30 years because he could only keep a job for 2.
So
in Jerry world, you keep a job for, how long was Jason Garrett the coach?
So it's
double-digit years?
Sure. This texter says, Jerry Jones doesn't care about winning. I've heard this a lot. He doesn't care about winning. He cares about money. As long as he's making money, he's running an entertainment business, not a football team.
That's absolutely true.
See, I don't agree with that. I think he cares about winning. I think he's just not good at, making it happen.
Well, when you say you're all in last year and then you make no moves, that's not caring about winning.
Well, but it's also being delusional about what you have, right? But that's certainly a problem for them.
Well, the delusion butts heads with the trying to win.
Yeah.
You got to get out of the delusion area in order to functionally have a chance to win. The only way they win is getting lucky. I mean, the only way they have a chance to win in a playoff game is good fortune.
The wild thing is 2 years ago going in the playoff, they had a tremendous 2023 regular season. They were one of the best teams in the league, and they have a home playoff game. The Packers come in and I don't think punted all night, but it wasn't that long ago that they looked like they were a legitimate team in the NFC, right?
Right. But to them, that was a Super Bowl winning season.
Right. But that's part of why the delusion was, there was at least some evidence for the delusion, right? That in 2023, the regular season was amazing. Dak was amazing. The offense was up there with anybody in the league, et cetera, et cetera. And now the reality is they're bad. And it's kind of funny, but I kind of feel bad for them. All right, we come back. We are going to get into the Titans and the offensive line. We keep putting it off, but it's an exciting topic we're going to get into. Robby Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Third and final hour, Robby and Rexrode, sponsored by First Horizon, Big Bank, Muscle, Small Bank, Hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/getitall. We are broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. And we're going to do a little giveaway, Nick Keyser. How about caller 5? Athletes Unlimited, a family 4-pack of tickets to the Athletes Unlimited professional basketball games at Nashville Municipal Auditorium. On Saturday, tip-off is at 5. See star players like Alicia Clark, Sydney Colson, Lexi Brown, Jordan Horson, Isabel Harrison, and more. Caller 5. And we are going to get into the Titans and the offensive line and the draft and the coaching, a lot of aspects of it. I did want to get some quick reactions here on the Cowboys rant that you had. Josh from Lebanon says, as a Cowboys fan who's lived in Middle Tennessee my entire life, I'm in my early 40s. All I do is shake my head when I hear Jerry Jones, the players, make comments like this. They're so far from a championship, most of the fans know it. And inside that building, they don't. Keith says the Cowboys are winning the Super Bowl next year, and Sydney Sweeney is my girlfriend. So there you go. Let's talk offensive line, PK. We talked with Nick Baumgardner earlier. He went through the prospects. If the Titans trade down now, if they trade down and they can get one of the two guys that we're going to keep debating for weeks and weeks, that's different. But it is possible that they trade down a little further. We've talked about, what are the Jets are 7? Is that right?
7.
Jets are 7, and we've talked about even going down to you're talking you better bring a whole bunch to the table. But like if the Steelers are in love with Cam Ward, from 21, it's a big drop. But what's the compensation? How many picks are we talking about? How many significant picks are we talking about? All of which is to say that they could be in a situation here, as much as they need an edge, and there are good edges, they could be in a situation here where the top player on their board where they're picking is an offensive lineman. First of all, just when I say that, what comes to mind for you? How many Titans fans are recoiling at the very thought?
I just you can't go into it necessarily thinking about like marketing and all of that kind of stuff, but this team needs some faces.
But see, I think that mindset is how you lose in football, man. Like, you got to have a good football team and win.
You have to have a good football team and win. But there are edges and receivers and best players available who aren't offensive linemen.
But what if the best person on your board is an offensive lineman?
Well, then
you go with the board. You don't go with the board?
Yeah, you go with the board.
Okay.
But the board's probably going to have 2 players that are pretty even, and hopefully one of them's not an offensive lineman. I mean,
but their offensive line is terrible.
Yes, it's terrible.
They need to address their terrible offensive line.
Well, there are ways to address your terrible offensive line by finding offensive linemen in the 2nd round, and by finding offensive linemen in the 4th round. Even
you could.
Teams do it.
They do.
Teams build offensive linemen without 3 first-round offensive linemen in 3 consecutive years. You really suck at identifying offensive line talent if you need to draft offensive linemen at left tackle, left guard, and right tackle in consecutive years.
Right, but these are different people. These are not the people who are making the choices
it's
now.
It's fine that they're different people. They're inheriting picks that they like. They don't hate Skoronski at left guard. Brinker was there for Latham. You can't say, well, the last 2 regimes drafted 1st-round offensive linemen, but that means that our drafting a 1st-round offensive lineman doesn't mean the franchise has drafted 3 offensive linemen in a row in the 1st round. I mean, that's too much value at one spot. While you've not drafted an edge, you've drafted an edge in the 1st round twice in the history of your franchise, and not since 2010. You've got to find other ways to make it work. So maybe there's one slapping you in the face there at 22 if you've traded down all the way down there. But it's ridiculous to draft the same position 3 years in a row, the same unit 3 years in a row. Yes, you have to get good there, but you also have to strategize how to get good there without using your top resource there 3 years in a row.
Maybe. By the way, right behind you on the TV was over just to get up there debating whether it's the Colts or the Titans for Aaron Rodgers. So that's which one is it? Colts or Titans for Aaron Rodgers? So that's interesting. Adam in Portland on the phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. You want to talk line combo? What's up, Adam?
Well, I dislike Aaron Rodgers, so yeah, bring him here. So put him behind that line, and it'll pay him back for all his weirdo behaviors, man. No, hey, it's the same thing. Sam Darnold, man, I don't trust Sam Darnold to come here and get behind this offensive line. And I feel like if we were to draft one of the rookies, Cam Ward or Deion's kid, that he's going to look like Malik. Or like rookie vets, I think would be the best, but he'll end up looking like Malik because they have no opportunity behind that offensive line. It was so bad. Even that when you would start seeing progress from Latham, it wasn't sustained. Skoronski, I still don't even know if he's a good player or not. I hope he is, but like there's zero continuity. So it doesn't matter who you put at quarterback, dude. Like the line should be the big money you spend in free agency. Like that should be,
at least you're finally starting to acknowledge that next year's line isn't going to be this year's line. You have to allow for change. I'm advocating for them not to spend a first round pick on it, but there's going to be a new right tackle and a new right guard. But
think about the 99 team though, PK, like the one when I think about the skill players in 99, they weren't great. Like I know we have a couple of them around here and we're like, they were awesome players in our heart, but they weren't Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. They weren't that level of bust, but the line was always elite. And like, we are so far from that level of offensive line. So I'm just so depressed. I'm trying to think of where you pick yourself up. And I don't really know, dude, because we're so busted.
Well, look, I'm not a fan of this team and I'm not giving them the benefit of the doubt on much, but the idea that the offensive line can't get better. I mean, you have to allow for the possibility that they could get better. People have rebuilt offensive lines. Now, there's not a lot of reason to have faith in this team because it keeps failing to rebuild the offensive line, but you have a new player picker in Borgonzi. You have Bill Callahan, who overestimated some people last year, who I think recalibrates now what he needs to have success. I would say that next year's offensive line is going to have significantly better options than last year's offensive line had.
I just don't. I don't know how you could just dismiss the idea of taking an offensive lineman in the first round. If it's the best player, if you believe it's the best player available to you, we can all agree. I understand the history, but we can. However you got to this spot, you're in this spot with a terrible offensive line, and we can talk about the Eagles' pass rush, and it was great, and you want that. We can also talk about how the Chiefs' offensive line failed them.
Yes.
And we can talk about how the Eagles' offensive line is not getting enough love right now for why they won it all.
I don't think they're trading back far enough to make this scenario viable.
Maybe not. But again, we've been talking this week about which dumb teams, right, are gonna get in there. It's conceivable that they ended up hedging. It's conceivable that the dumb team happens to be lower in the draft and that they're dumb enough to give a bleep ton to you, in which case I think that, again, I think then you get in the conversation of, okay, look at all these picks, all the need we have to fix so many things, and look how much more we can do collectively. And then you're comparing that to this player or that player. Are we talking generational player?
Yeah.
If so, you have to take the player.
Well, the question then is, and this, started a good ways ago when I was subbing in here and we talked to Charles Robinson. And I think there is some level of consensus, now this comes from scouts trickling through analysts, that there aren't that many first round picks in this draft. There certainly aren't 32. There never are.
Grades.
Yeah, first round grade.
Yeah.
And so if the Titans have 12, they need to get one of those 12 players. So if you're going to 22, then you're conceding, hey, we're loading up on second rounders this year, some of whom are going to be drafted in the first round and make first round money. And I don't know if that's the best path. I like the idea of them loading up on picks, but I think if they have 12 first round picks, they've got to get one of the 12 first round players.
Okay. I have an argument against that. We'll get to that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, talking O-line, talking draft, and I want to get into Bill Callahan too, PK. But all right, I gotta yell at this texter here. Andrew says this obsession with more picks is so overblown. You can have 15 picks and get one great player. You can also have a program-changing draft with only 5 or 6 picks. If your scouts and process sucks, the number of picks doesn't matter unless you're hoping for blind luck. Let's do math, Andrew. Go back and I'll draw it up. Let's go back and look at some Eagles drafts. Okay. There are some terrible picks in there for some terrible picks, including Andre Dillard. It's math. Yes, obviously your process, you have to make good choices. You need a lot more hits than misses and all that stuff. But if you have more picks, then the math says you can absorb a bust or two and be fine. You want more picks. And here's my argument against you, PK.
Whatever your hit rate is, if you have more picks, there are more hits.
Yes. We got to go with probabilities here. Okay. And so it's not overblown and it's not dumb. It's smart. And here's where I would argue with you, PK. I hear what you're saying on a first-round grade. You need to get one of those players with a first-round grade. But, this is where, to me, it's like, okay, so tell me the difference in value. Because if you have – I know some teams have said, like, okay, from like 20 to 50, it's similar level of player. Well, those are players who start and can be very – and if you can get 4 of them, how much more is the value of – yes, I'd rather have a first-round grade player too, but how much more is the value of that player? How much better is that player than that level, the next level down? You know what I mean? I don't have the answer, but I feel like second-round grade players in this league start and in many cases star in the NFL. So that's what. Now, if we're talking absolute top of the draft, again, is Abdul Carter a star for many years? Is Travis Hunter what I think he is at cornerback? Then that's a different level too than just the first round grade player, right?
Yes.
So,
but I will take you back. This is a year ago at owners meetings, and I wrote a story where the Titans stand on one blue chip versus 2 very good players.
Okay.
All right. So I've got Chad Brinker and then Rand Carthon, who's not relevant any longer on that. Brinker, you're always wanting to add impact players whenever you can. I think you go for the blue chip, the guy who changes the game.
Yeah. But that to me that's the Abdul Carter level.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about. Okay. So the 12th guy of the 12 first-round grade. That's where it gets into
how good
how much
is the 12th guy.
Yeah, how much has the value gone down there? How different is it from the next tier, the top of the next tier? I'm a believer in.
Oh, that's a fair
like Brinker said. Like Brinker said, I mean, he's talking top 100 picks. I'm a believer in if you're in that, if you have a lot of bites at the apple in that range. Again, you have to be good. You have to scout well. You have to make good choices. But I think that you can really make a big difference for your team if you're doing that. We have Dylan on the phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHigh.com with an O-line thought. What's up, Dylan?
Hey, guys. I'm a little torn about which way we go, like with either your side or Paul. But I know at least that the first round that we've drafted, offensive linemen, it still hasn't quite worked out yet. So I'm really not sure I want to go that route. I feel like I just want to go with the best player that we can get and, just acknowledge that we can build an offensive line, like Paul said, even if we don't draft offensive linemen in the first round. I want to get the best players that we can get, not, difference makers. Although I see the other side where, we had the first overall pick and, we traded it and we got Derrick Henry out of that. So, I mean, both ways could work out, but I feel like Paul's way, I feel like it's the best way, in my opinion. But I'll see what y'all's thoughts are on that, and I'll get off here.
Thank you, Dylan. Paul's way is the best way. Well, those words hurt. So I understand the history. I understand the marketing aspect. To me, like that's a great way to stay bad as a football team is to worry about stuff like that. I'm a believer in the big board. And frankly, the Titans horizontally and vertically, a great offensive lineman is a huge asset. Now, again, we don't know what they're going to do in free agency. And so maybe they do enough to address it that then the need aspect of it is diminished by the time they get to the draft. But I just don't see how you can, because it's been so bad. And then remember, like LD from McMinnville said, well, Brinker was here for the drafting of offensive linemen. Right. Skoronski, who is at least a starter. I don't know. You tell me how good Skoronski is, but he's at least a starter. It's not like it's not the disaster.
Going to be a plus guard.
Okay.
Better than starter. He's not worth the draft pick they got him at.
Right. But I mean, you tell me that he's a good player and starting, and like you might give him the second deal.
Yeah.
Fine. Latham, it's way too early. He has to work out. He has to. But so those two picks, that is not the same as the 3-year run of Isaiah Wilson first round, Dylan Radin second round, Nicholas Petit for a third round. That's a hell of a run. That's the run.
That's why they are where they are.
Right. That's why they are where they are. I'm just saying, first of all, those were different people who made those choices. And look, man, you've got to, like, a great young tackle. Again, you hope Latham turns into that. But to me, if you can find another one, yeah, I'm with you. It's great if you love someone and like you've got 30 players that are similar in grade and you can get a second round tackle. Okay, I'm with you. That would be good. I just don't see how you dismiss out of hand that you come upon the best player that you see available and it happens to be a tackle.
Well, I don't dismiss it out of hand. It's very much not my preferred path.
Yeah, I get it.
I mean, they've been addressing offensive line. They have to fix offensive line. But while they've been addressing offensive line with the 3 guys you mentioned, Wilson, Radins, Petit Frere, Skoronski, Latham, that is massive draft capital. And while they've been doing that, they haven't touched edge rusher with anything of value. There are other positions.
They signed Bud Dupree, right? I mean, to go with the second round pick.
But young
Harold
draft
Landry.
capital who are going to be guys that grow up in your system. You know, I'm not saying you need to take a safety in the first 2 rounds, but where's Amani Hooker? Where's Kevin Byard's successor in all of that? Things like that happen for good teams.
Third round would be
They've been busy burning on offensive linemen.
Yeah. No, for sure. That's why they are where they are. You can make a case for a lot of positions. And again, this is why if they're able to increase the number, yes, that's not overblown. That is
and John Robinson, I remember asking him about this chasing. And he said, offensive line is it's 5 people. It's an important position, and we're going to keep spending on it. He wasn't shy about doing it. Now, he wasn't shy about big misses there either after Conklin.
Right. But I mean, they decided not to pay him.
I didn't think that was unreasonable.
No. I mean,
injury history and stuff, and you can't pay Lawan and Conklin. The problem was missing and the replacement. The problem wasn't letting him go.
Right. Like in retrospect, you're like, man, what if they had just kept Conklin? And yeah, it would have been better, but I'm with you.
He suffered some injuries up there. He had another All-Pro season or 2 up there too, but
then he's been banged up a lot. No, but again, the Titans' turnaround immediately under John Robinson was getting a leader and tough, good center in free agency for not a ton of money, and then taking a right tackle number 8. And then having a legit, like, first round, like, Pro Bowl level left tackle who finally removed his head from nether regions, right? Basically. I mean, that's with a fair way to.
Which was left behind for you.
Right.
I mean, you inherited, allegedly a top quarterback who you had to let play out in Marcus. And you inherited Lawan, who was Rustin Webster's single best move.
Yeah,
drafted him a year ahead of needing him.
But the reason that you won that year more than anything to me was because you all of a sudden were good up front, and you had DeMarco Murray running the football behind that offensive line.
Yeah.
So maybe they should get it back. No, just kidding. We are going to get into the guy who runs this offensive line, though, because I think it's a huge year for him. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 the game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106 for the game, sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Visit firsthorizon.com/get-it-all. And a lot of reaction here, PK, as you might imagine. You know, I got to go to I forget the YouTube chat, and then who knows what the heck they're talking about over there. There's a lot of stuff going on there.
You have to remember not to forget.
Yes, I know. I'm getting there. I do appreciate Jabari on the YouTube chat saying PK wants the injury version of Garrett 30+. Yeah, I'm a little bit biased, but he's great right now. No doubt. He's great. Dixie says if the Titans signed Trey Smith $20 million to $20 million after the Super Bowl performance, just forfeit the season. Trey Smith did get humbled in that Super Bowl. The Chiefs did in general. I will say it was a heck of a tough matchup, though. Trey Smith, I'm not against Trey Smith being a target of the Titans. I think he would certainly be. I mean, you're talking about an upgrade over Dylan Radins or Daniel Brunskill or whoever else they've tried to play at right guard. You would solidify right guard. So I don't know what the number is exactly, but I'm not opposed to that.
It's a big number. Here's the comment that drives me crazy. Richard Snyder, who's good. At some point, Daddy Callahan has to get fourth-round guys to play like second-round guys. At some point. We've been waiting years and years for Daddy Callahan to get it produced. I mean, he got off to a bad start. He overestimated talent and guys underachieved. But at some point, I mean, they're making it sound like Bill Callahan hasn't gotten it done for years.
Right. Well,
I mean, he had a bad year.
But this is like the Titans fan. I'm with you, except this is like the Titans fan misery of looking around the league and saying, oh, wow, look at that guy who now that he's not here, look how well he's doing with that team. Look at this guy and how well he's doing with this team. Why can't – and then Bill Callahan is the greatest offensive line coach of all time and comes in here and it's like, oh, the offensive line continues to suck. You know, I get the frustration.
Yeah,
of course
but don't make it sound
right.
like he hasn't done things for years and years and years. And don't make it sound like the Titans can never win or have never won. It was just a few years ago they were the number 1 seed in the AFC. They can win.
That is true.
It's been done. By the way, last time they won 3 games, the next year they won 9 games.
That is true,
Now,
too.
I'm not expecting any of this. I'm as down on them as I've ever been. But you have to put the facts in evidence.
Yeah. Now, with Bill Callahan, it is interesting because, first of all, look, one of the reasons that I mistakenly thought Nicholas Petit-Frere would be okay at right tackle, I think you were right with me, is I trusted his evaluation, right?
Yes.
Went through all the tape. So those guys talked about the combine last year is how just watching the guy watch tape was mesmerizing. Listening to him break down his evaluation of tape is like, oh, you guys should have heard it. You should have seen it, you know?
But
So,
1 year is a tiny sample size.
It is a tiny sample size, but also I mean, people lose their fastball, right?
Yes.
That does happen. So when you look at the totality of his first year, we can all agree bad offensive line. We can certainly agree bad evaluation on Petit-Frere. What did you see that you liked?
Well, I think Skoronski steadily got better and did a good job of it kind of explaining that, maybe why the pace wasn't as fast as we wanted and why it wasn't a magical transformation and why things went the way it did. I certainly think losing Cushenberry halfway through, and I don't want to make excuses for them, but Cushenberry, everybody was looking to as the leader of that offensive line. We saw what Ben Jones did for the team when he came in. I'm not saying Cushenberry and Ben Jones are alike necessarily, but when you're looking for the center to be the linchpin of the line and you lose him halfway through when he was starting to maybe, get into sync with Callahan, that was another bomb that blew up. So look, I'm not positive Latham's a left tackle and going to be good because he drifted and didn't get steadily better. He faded, which was a concern. But there's a scenario where he's better, Skoronski's better, Cushenberry's healthy and better, and they find 2 fixes and the line is substantially better. That's what they're counting on. Do I believe that happens? I'm saying consistently, I need to see things in practice before I'm buying them. But I think there's worst case scenarios than having Bill Callahan, those 3 guys, and resources to get the other 2.
Texter says, if Callahan has to have first round or high money frees instead of your position, we have far too much reverence for him. Stoutland making undrafted free agents into top 3 to 5 offensive linemen in the NFL. Jeff Stoutland, who, by the way, one of the best people, one of my favorite people I've ever covered in football, and he is a great – it's those 2, right, have been regarded as the best 2 line coaches in the NFL. If Callahan's as good as we say, he should be able to get there with at least one not highly invested in player. I will say to the texter, like he did that again. I know it's not helping your team, but he did that with Cleveland last year.
Yeah,
like he before. Comes. The 2023. He has done that. So,
and now, I mean, you think his pride wasn't wounded by the performance of his group? I would think, much like his son, he comes out of that season thinking, I gotta do way better.
Right.
I got to get better people, and I got to coach them up better, and we got to perform way better.
Andrew says, Bill Callahan was the biggest lie ever sold to Titans fans. I still laugh my ass off thinking of the silly reports like Bill Callahan had training equipment out there custom made that we have never seen before. Just laughable after watching that line suck more than the last 2 years. That's a hard. The biggest lie ever sold to Titans fans. It might be.
I mean,
it might be a little extreme.
The
Andrew.
Recency bias is so crazy. I mean, Bishop Sankey was drafted by this team in the 2nd round. You don't think that's a bigger lie? Or Justin Hunter and Dorial Green Beckham?
Chance
Warmack? Isaiah Wilson? I mean, we could just name terrible draft picks. They're all bigger lies than Bill Callahan.
Ken Wisenhunt? How about that? How about that as a lie sold to Titans?
Nobody wants to look at anything that's more than 2 years old.
Well, yeah. Look, it's disappointing. It's very disappointing because I definitely just expected there to be a bump. Absolutely. I expected there to be a clear uptick, and there wasn't. But yeah, it was better.
It was better than the year before, wasn't it?
I mean,
just
Andrew
left tackle alone.
Was,
Latham wasn't great, but he was better than
than
Dillard.
Yeah, definitely better than Dillard. Yes. But I guess right tackle might have been worse, right? I mean, that's the thing.
Yeah, right tackle was really bad. It was really bad the year before.
It's been bad for, I mean, this is, and again, this is, to me, it's like you keep coming back to why you succeed or don't in the NFL. I mean, it's such an important thing. So I don't know, when you say 2 fixes, I guess I'd like to know how good those fixes are. Like, you have to have a tackle in this league. You have to have one tackle in this league where you can say there's a matchup against a good pass rusher and he can handle it. Like, and when's the last time the Titans have been able to do it? It's like, it really is like before Lawan tore his ACL in 2020.
Yep.
It's been that long. And that's crazy.
And this is a team that, had a chain of left tackles from Brad Hopkins, who dates back to Houston, to Michael Roos,
right,
to healthy Lawan.
There's a lineage.
It was a lineage position.
Yeah. Texter says there's no way Bill Callahan's O-line was worse than the year before. I would tend to agree. I do think it's close, though. I mean, overall, the overall product was bad.
I mean, the improvement was nowhere near what was expected.
David says, don't you also think Levis didn't maneuver behind the line as well as some quarterbacks would, leading them to look worse than they really were? Well, I mean, some of it's on him, but I think we should give the offensive line credit for being awful.
The offensive line was awful, but there is a good share of quarterbacking to it. Quarterbacking, and I saw Mark Schlereth talking about this. Quarterbacking is sacks are more and more a quarterback stat, and a coaching stat, he said, where you're not calling stuff to get the ball out fast enough when it's clear that your offensive line can't handle certain things, and where quarterbacks try to do too much. And I'm a believer in that. And when I covered the AFC South, I talked to Peyton Manning about it, and he was a believer in that. And I think your quarterback's got to be a certain level of good to prevent it, not just for drive sustaining and that sort of stuff, but for health preservation.
Yeah. Look, the Super Bowl to me, I mean, for the most part, the Chiefs were pretty helpless when you get beat that soundly up front. But
Yeah, when you get beat that badly, it's not a quarterback.
But I thought that they could have gone earlier to just the ball's got to be out. More quick game stuff that they finally ended up going
which
to.
they're good at,
yeah,
and thrive at. And somehow they got away from.
All right, we come back. We will wrap it up. Robby and Rexrode 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Final segment, Robby and Rexrode. I just want to thank you, PK, for you got people screaming at me on Twitter or X or whatever the heck.
Oh, I thought you were just going to straight out thank me for being here, for all the rave reviews that are rolling in about this excellent show that we've done this morning. You could have just done that.
I mean, I could, but like
you're not thankful at all.
Well, I'm thankful, but then you tweeted like headline, Joe.
I mean, we could get an intern in here for the next 2 days if you like. Could struggle through.
No, relax. Yeah, you tweeted that I have Travis Hunter over Abdul Carter.
You did when I made you choose.
It's so close.
It's so funny. I mean, that's completely reasonable for you to do that. But because the vast majority have decided it's the other way, that's somehow controversial. It's not controversial.
Right.
But I knew when I sent that out that people would go crazy.
Yes.
It's not at all crazy, ladies and gentlemen, for Joe Rexrode to think that Travis Hunter is a better player than Abdul Carter at this stage. It's not crazy. Right. I'm on the other side of it. But I'm also probably really slanted because of the Titans' desperation at edge. But it's not an unreasonable stance. So if you're going at Joe over that, I mean, goodness gracious.
I got to read this guy, the Titans Twitter representative here, Zach, says, thank bleeping God Joe isn't the GM for the Titans. He said, I love this narrative, man. He says, Hunter is not the best at either position. Why would we draft a guy, number one, that's not the top guy at the position he'll play? I said, he is absolutely the best cornerback in this draft. No, he's not better than Will Johnson. Right. Yeah. Okay, look. Are people going to –
Also, you project a little bit forward.
Yeah, and people are using like the fact that he didn't win the Biletnikoff, or not the Biletnikoff, my God, what is the DB award? How am I blanking on that? He didn't win the.
You're the college football expert at the Athletic.
It's pretty bad. He didn't win the DB award. He won the high, and I'll tell you, this is what voters do, right? Like they're going to vote him for Heisman or Maxwell, like the best player, and so they'll vote somebody else the DB winner.
It's like Thorpe. Offensive player of the year.
Exactly. It's the Jim Thorpe award. MVP. So people are using him, not using the Jim Thorpe award. Though he's not even the top corner in the draft. We just talked today about how some people believe he's not just the best corner in this draft, the best corner in many drafts, a generational player. Will he be that? I don't know, but that is the conversation. That is the hope for him.
And
so
when Chad Brinker,
please live in reality.
When Chad Brinker, by the way, talked in mid-January when Borgonzi was hired and said, we won't pass on a generational player, virtually everybody at that time was thinking, if he's talking about a potentially generational player, he was talking about Hunter.
Right. But maybe he was talking about Carter.
Maybe he was talking about Carter.
Maybe he was. Maybe he wasn't talking about anybody.
But yeah,
maybe he was just saying that in general.
Or right? Player X.
Sure. Yeah.
But that thinking has changed since then. In the moment, I think most of us thought, well, maybe they think that about Hunter. Since then, a lot of us have started to think, well, maybe he was talking about Carter. But at the time, when he said it, Hunter is what came to mind.
Hunter is what came to mind, people. Yes. So will it be
now it's scandalous that you would suggest that you would take Hunter.
And look, I get it. If I'm a Titans fan, I'm probably most excited. Well, maybe quarterback, and that's fine. If you believe one of these guys is gonna be great, then you can do that. But I think I would bet that most Titans fans would be most excited about Abdul Carter right now, especially after watching the Super Bowl and saying, well, see, here's another reminder when you can just the greatest quarterback of the current era of the NFL had no chance. It looked like a bad quarterback because of the pass rush.
This is something we should expand into tomorrow. Like, say that they wind up loving Cam Ward. I mean, it would certainly come out before the draft, but for how heavily people just reacted really badly to the idea of Travis Hunter, who's fantastic. People are so set. There's such a high percentage of people that want Abdul Carter that if they fall in love with Cam Ward and take him first, will there ever have been a fan base and a market more disappointed about a quarterback needy team taking a quarterback number one overall in the draft? That's a really good conversation that we could have tomorrow.
That is a really interesting conversation. I mean, I immediately want to look at the number one because I feel like in almost every case, it's like, of course, yes.
This is our guy.
Baker.
We're going to paint the pretty face on him. Achilles Smith.
Was he number one? Was he?
I think
number one?
so.
I thought he was like number 4.
Wasn't
Wasn't that the year that Couch went number 1?
Kajana Carter, maybe. Or Tim Couch. Tim Couch.
I mean, the Browns are all the Browns
all over
are
this conversation.
in this.
But we could look at the excitement level for all of these quarterbacks. Everybody gets hopeful about the number 1 pick, and if it's a quarterback, you're imagining him transforming your franchise. Will this fan base shift into that mode with Cam Ward, or will they be saying, "Oh, should have been Abdul Carter"?
That's a great question. We will get into that tomorrow. We'll
That
also have
is a
Charles
great
Robinson.
question. That's
Good
why
job.
he's thanking me
Thank
so
you
much
so
for
much.
being here.
Thank you so
Don't
much.
block the box, and be sure to lock your locks.
Chase and Big Joe coming up next. 102.5, 106.3 The Game.